Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, we're going to react to the 10 most vicious acts of revenge in history. This is going to be quite an interesting one. When we feel slighted, when we feel like we've been hard done by, it's natural to want to get your own back on that person or organization or whatever. It's normal. I think that's a normal human emotion. They do say that you shouldn't hold grudges, you should let go of things, but it's easier said than done a lot of the time, especially if it's something that really affected us. So I can understand the motive for wanting revenge, but then to go to extreme lengths, maybe to take it way too far, you know, they do say two wrongs don't make a right.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped
Eisenhower?
one bomb on Hiroshima and destroyed its usefulness to the enemy.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at 10 of the most vicious acts of revenge in all of history.
The Holocaust survivors had no mercy and beat several SS men and capos to death with fists, as well as sticks and shovels.
For this list, we'll be examining cases in which a thirst for revenge was quenched in the most brutal way imaginable. What's the most sordid tale of retaliation you've ever heard? Let us know in the comments. Joaquin Murrieta. The widely known story of Joaquin Murrieta is a mix of history, myth, and legend.
Joaquin has been credited with inspiring not just the image of Zorro, but by extension the image of Batman.
While it is generally accepted that he existed during the 19th century, most of the established details of his life seem to have come from a fictional biography written by John Rollin Ridge. Legend has it that Murrieta and his brother were attacked after being wrongly accused of stealing a horse. This resulted in his brother's death. Fueled by a quest for vengeance, Murrieta reportedly recruited a gang and hunted down the killers one by one.
Help! Save an innocent man!
An innocent man doesn't hang from a tree.
These crimes drew significant attention and led to a bounty being placed on Murrieta's head. He is said to have been killed in a gunfight with the California Rangers in 1853.
Joaquin Murrieta is a poetic concoction, an image, a symbol, and a myth that will feed generations to come.
Buford Pusser.
Man, I remember the movie The Mask of Zorro, the one with Antonio Banderas and Catherine Zeta-Jones. That film, man, classic.
Soon after becoming the sheriff of McNairy County in Tennessee, Buford Pusser waged war on crime syndicates in the area.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the gentleman whose life is the subject of the movie Walking Tall, Buford Pusser.
This certainly didn't make him any friends in the criminal underworld. Pusser was the target of several attempted assassinations and managed to escape all of them alive. Unfortunately, his wife wasn't so lucky. In the early hours of August 12, 1967, Pusser's car was ambushed by gunmen who killed his wife Pauline and left him severely injured.
God.
501's emergency.
Pusser vowed to avenge Pauline's death, linking the attack to Kirksey Nix, a former Dixie Mafia boss, and also naming other accomplices. While Pusser never got to exact his revenge on Nix, the other named accomplices were all reportedly killed under mysterious circumstances. Pierre Picot.
Mysterious circumstances, eh? Think we can suspect what happened there.
The real-life Count of Monte Cristo. After his engagement to a rich woman in 1807, Pierre Picot, a shoemaker from Nîmes, France, was wrongfully accused of treason by his envious friends, Lupin, Solari, and Chabard.
And if you're thinking just now, why me, oh God? The answer is, God has nothing to do with it.
Upon his release from prison, Picot spent a decade devising his revenge plot. Seemingly without much effort, he ended the lives of Solari and Chabard. But for Lupin, who eventually married Picot's fiancée, things took a twisted turn.
Married his fiancée? Jeez, man.
Did I escape? With difficulty. How did I plan this moment? With pleasure.
Picot went after Lupin's children, arresting his daughter's husband, which led to her dying of shock, and having his son sent to jail. He also gutted Lupin's finances by having his restaurant burned down before eventually killing him.
Wow.
This elaborate plot only came to light after Picot confessed to the police. Julius Caesar.
Oh, man, it's easy to sit here and judge these guys. Oh, you went too far, da, 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 da. But if somebody did that to you, how would you feel, you know?
Years before he became a member of the First Triumvirate of Rome, a then 25-year-old Julius Caesar was traveling across the Aegean Sea when he was abducted by Cilician pirates. His ransom was set at 20 talents of silver, but Caesar himself asked them to raise their offer to 50.
The pirates must have thought they'd hit the jackpot. When you demand a ransom, you don't expect your victim to start trying to negotiate upwards.
During this period, Caesar maintained his nobility and refused to behave like a captive. He reportedly promised the abductors that after his release, he'd return and crucify them all. And he did just that.
The pirates let Caesar sail away to the nearby port of Miletus. It was a fatal error.
Upon regaining his freedom, Caesar assembled a fleet of ships, with which he pursued and captured the pirates. The future Roman dictator kept his word and crucified every last one of them.
Oh my God.
The women of Casturba...
When those pirates saw him again, like at the head of those ships, they must have thinking, what have we done? Like, why did we let him go?
Nagar, India.
Why did the women of Nagpur feel the need to kill?
Kasturba Nagar is an Indian slum that was terrorized by a notorious criminal known as Aku Yadav. Yadav assaulted dozens of women, killed at least 3 people, and was known to invade people's homes and extort from them. On August 13, 2004, Yadav was scheduled to appear in court for a bail hearing. After word got around that he was likely to be released, hundreds of women swarmed the courthouse with knives and chili powder. Right there in the building, he was lynched by the women, many of whom had been his victims.
Aku Yadav, a local criminal, was stabbed and stoned to death today.
They stabbed him multiple times and poured chili powder on his face, leaving the man that had tormented them in a pool of his own blood.
It was an arranged, planned murder which had something very fishy, which is still unexplored.
Maria Oktyabrskaya.
Hey, you reap what you sow. I mean, he must have known that his days were numbered. You can't go doing things like that, you know, and expect no kind of blowback. You must be completely delusional if you think like that.
As the wife of a Soviet army officer, Maria Oktyabrskaya developed a flair for the military and acquired extensive weapons knowledge. After being evacuated to Siberia during World War II, Oktyabrskaya learned that her husband had been killed on the front lines. In a bid to avenge his death by Nazi soldiers, Oktyabrskaya sold all her belongings and purchased a T-34 tank, which she requested to drive herself.
When 38-year-old Maria Oktyabrskaya arrived with her T-34 tank in Smolensk, the soldiers thought it was a joke.
Following a 5-month training program, Oktyabrskaya joined the war and participated in multiple assaults against German forces.
It was widely considered as an act of ridicule, and almost no one treated her seriously. However, Maria, seeking revenge on the Germans, proved very quickly how wrong they were.
Unfortunately, in January of 1944, she was struck by a shell fragment and went into a coma for 2 months. She died in March and was posthumously conferred the title Hero of the Soviet Union.
For her courage and acts of fortitude, she was awarded the highest medal of the Soviet Union.
Diana the Hunter.
Wow, 2-month coma. Can you imagine waking up one day and you've been asleep for 2 months? You wake up and it's like summer's almost over. That would be just so strange and weird. Have any of you guys been in a coma? Like, let me know like what it was like for you to wake up and you were like, you know, where am I? What day is it?
In August of 2013, 2 bus drivers in the Mexican city of Ciudad Juarez were killed by a blonde woman who had boarded their buses.
There are details in the investigation files showing similarities between the crimes, the times, and how they were committed and the weapon used.
A few days after the murders, local news outlets received emails from an unknown woman who called herself Diana the Hunter of Bus Drivers. In the letters, Diana owned up to the killings, which she claimed to have carried out as revenge for the many ladies who suffered assault at the hands of bus drivers in the area.
That's why I am an instrument that will take revenge from many women. We are seen as weak, but in reality, we are not. We are brave.
In the years prior, dozens of women in Ciudad Juarez had disappeared after last being seen on buses, but hardly anyone paid for those crimes. The identity of Diana the Hunter, however, has since remained unknown.
In at least one instance, she was described as being dressed up in a cap, plaid shirt, and jeans. But beyond this, the details were practically non-existent.
The Dachau Revenge.
I can understand, her thinking, but what if the drivers that she'd killed were innocent? What if they hadn't been perpetrators? What if they hadn't done anything wrong,
The Dachau concentration camp, located in the state of Bavaria in southern Germany, was the first of its kind opened under the Nazi regime.
Up to 30,000 people were entombed here at one time, and 30,000 were present when the Allies reached Dachau.
Although it was initially intended to hold political prisoners, it eventually became a place of confinement and torture for citizens of other countries occupied by Germany. On April 29, 1945, Dachau was liberated by American soldiers, who were horrified by the conditions in which they found its prisoners. Driven by rage, the soldiers reportedly lined up dozens of SS officers and guards who oversaw the horrors that took place in Dachau. They then allegedly executed them in retaliation for these crimes.
There were some guards who tried to flee dressed as peasants. However, they were recognized and killed as well.
The controversial ordeal has been seen by some historians as a possible war crime.
Nobody has ever stood trial before the court for this reprisal. General Patton, then military governor of Bavaria, dismissed all the charges.
Operation Wrath of God. The 1972 Summer Olympics in Munich were largely overshadowed by the massacre of 11 members of the Israeli Olympic team by a Palestinian militant group called Black September.
Once the firing stopped, all 9 of the Israeli hostages, a German policeman, and 5 of the 8 terrorists were dead.
In response, then Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir sanctioned a secret operation known as Wrath of God to avenge their deaths. The campaign, which was carried out by Mossad agents, was targeted at those directly and indirectly involved in the Munich massacre. Over the next few months, Mossad agents executed covert assassination plots, taking the lives of more than a dozen people they believed were linked to the Olympics incident.
Yes?
In 1973, following the murder of an innocent man in Norway after being misidentified as one of the targets, the operation was suspended.
But as long as you're going after the bad guys, people can either look the other way or quietly applaud you. The minute you make a mistake, then it all turns downwards.
Before we continue...
God, there's just so much bad blood there, I try not to talk about that specific conflict, but, because it's just so... At the moment, it's so like, how can I describe it? Obviously, you know what I mean, but there's just so much bad blood there. I just don't know how it ends, if it's possible to even have peace, I don't know.
Continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into settings and switch on your notifications. The Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings. Before the 7th of December 1941, the United States remained neutral during World War II. That all changed after the naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii was unexpectedly attacked by Japan, leading to the deaths of more than 2,000 Americans.
The plan for attacking Pearl Harbor was to destroy the U.S.'s Pacific Fleet, a move which would give the Japanese time to carry out its plans to keep control of the Pacific without U.S. interference.
Fast forward nearly 4 years later, on the
what was Japan thinking? Such a big mistake.
6th and 9th of August 1945, the U.S. respectively dropped 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 2 Japanese cities. Soon after, Japan surrendered to the Allied forces. The devastating attacks killed between 129,000 and 226,000 people and left long-lasting effects in the communities. In an address to the nation after the bombings, then-President Harry Truman referred to them as reciprocation for the attack on Pearl Harbor.
Wow. I mean, most of us have seen Oppenheimer, we all know about how hard it was to create those bombs. But whenever you hear the number of people killed by Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I mean, the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, you know, well over 100,000 people. That is just such a large amount of people to be just gone like that. Nuclear weapons are just, they're not toys to be played with or to be used lightly at all. It's insane how devastating they are. I can understand why we need them, because obviously if we live in a world where unfortunately there's adversaries, and if you don't have them, you can be kind of seen as weak. So I guess the deterrent factor is relevant and legitimate, but it'd be amazing if we didn't have to have them, you know? Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.